let me say in making the introduction that we're privileged to have these two really great public servants, consistent with what Chris Lavin said. People who go into public service because they believe in something. We have a few cynics in our society who think they go in for other reasons. I don't think that's true. People go into public service because they want to be agents of change. Their politics may not always be your politics or mine, doesn't matter. We honor public service when it's done with integrity. We have gone through a very difficult time in this city. A very great Prime Minister of Great Britain, Benjamin Disraeli, said, "I have made it a habit to close the gates of my life behind me." And there comes a point where everyone needs to do that. You need to move on. And we need to do that in this city because we need to move on. And we will. Whoever winds up being mayor, we will move on. But through this difficult, trying, tumultuous period, the two men who are here today provided really remarkable public service. And we're grateful to them, grateful for their leadership, and we're excited to hear what they have to share with us today. And we will begin with the councilman from the 2nd Councilmanic District, a very special person indeed, the Honorable Kevin Faulconer.
Well, thank you, George. Thank you for having both Todd and I here today. Every time I get a chance to follow George Mitrovich on the microphone, I never relish it, but I'm glad that we're all here together. And let me just say, the topic was, how do we move forward? Let me answer that question in one word: together. George, you alluded to the last several weeks, and indeed the last several months in our city. And it's been a whirlwind. It's been extremely trying. And as Todd and I were just reflecting, particularly on those last several weeks that led to the mayor's resignation, and particularly those days that we were both involved in mediation, we had a determination, both of us together, that we were going to put San Diego's interests first, and that we were going to do whatever it took to move this city forward and to achieve the result that we did. And while it wasn't necessarily easy, I can tell you, sitting side by side with my friend Todd, knowing that determination that we both had, we did it. And we did it collectively. We did it with our city attorney. And we did it because of all of you who knew that we needed to move the city forward and believe that what we went through in the last several weeks did not reflect who we are as San Diegans. And I think we all knew that. And it was tough to see our city be the butt of national jokes, et cetera, et cetera. But we knew we were better. We knew we were going to get through this. And we did. And let me just say at the outset, as Mr. Gloria, Todd, council member, interim mayor Gloria, moves into that role as interim mayor, he knows that he has my 100% support. He is the right guy at the right time to serve as interim mayor at this city. We have met numerous occasions already. As Todd, as I'm sure, is going to tell you, there's a lot to do, and there's a lot that needs to be fixed. But we're going to keep that same spirit of cooperation, that same spirit of bipartisanship, because that's what this city needs right now. And I'm looking forward to that, Todd, even if my life has gotten a little busier these days with the effort that I'm embarking on. But as we look forward to not only the interim next several weeks, but indeed the months and years ahead, I'm honored to have thrown my hat in to be mayor of the city of San Diego. I feel deeply proud of this city. And I've been on the council now for 7 years. I'm the old man of the council now. And we've done a lot of great things. And then I said in my announcement speech just a couple of days ago, we do great things when we work together. And and that's the best of what the City Club represents, which is why I'm delighted that this is one of my first big public speeches and addresses after announcing my campaign for mayor. because that's what my campaign is going to be about, is working to achieve results. And we achieve great things if we don't worry about who gets the credit. A lot of folks have said, Kevin, you're not the loudest guy in the room on the council. You don't grandstand all the time. No, I don't, and I haven't. But I like to think that I've been pretty gosh darn effective when we put our minds to it. And whether it was the recent events of the mayor's Filner's issue, whether it was Todd and I working together on the 5-year labor agreement that we just passed, that the council passed unanimously, both of us, Republicans and Democrats, working together to achieve that, we can do that. Whether it was the work that we did on the retiree health care deal that saved this city $900 million a year and a half ago, we can do that when we put our minds together and we work together. So I'm proud of what we have accomplished as a city, and why I'm running, because I know we can do so much more. And I know that I'm ready to get in there on day one and get to work. Get to work with Todd, get to work with my colleagues on the council, because there's a lot we have to do. We're going to get back into the infrastructure business. Mayor Filner inexplicably skipped the bond measure that we had planned this year that resulted in us not doing, among other things, 40 miles of roads in our neighborhoods, not to mention a variety of things in our rec centers, our libraries, and our parks. Todd and I share that goal that we are going to get back on track, and I know my colleagues do. I'm going to push, and we're going to move forward with managed competition for city services, which is the ability of the private sector to come in and compete for services, something that the voters of the city of San Diego passed overwhelmingly, and that we just started to scratch the surface under Mayor Jerry Sanders' administration. When Jerry left, he had 5 managed competitions that were still on his desk that were just about ready to go out to bid and out to compete. We still have those 5 managed competitions that we haven't done. And conservatively, if you look at the ones that we have performed, there's about $20 million that are on the table if we move forward that we can then reinvest back into our parks, back into our neighborhoods, back into our street repair. And another issue that's going to be critically important to me, as I know it is to Todd and my colleagues, is the issue of police officer recruitment and retention. I was proud that the council moved forward just 2 weeks ago on that issue, and we moved so unanimously because we have some of the best and brightest men and women of the San Diego Police Department, but we need to keep them in our police department. And they're being attracted and recruited by other agencies. Sheriff Bill Gore, I don't think Bill's in the room today, but stop taking our folks. We're going to keep them. We're going to keep them here in San Diego. And we came up with a plan, a 1-year plan that we need to turn into a multi-year plan that we're going to do to not only attract but retain some of the best and brightest, because we have a real issue in the San Diego Police Department, ladies and gentlemen. We need more officers, and we need to keep the ones we do. Those are just few of the things that we're going to be working on together. Those are the things that I'm going to be talking about as mayor. Today's not really a big campaign speech. I could turn it into one, I suppose, but we're really going to focus on how we're moving forward. But a little bit about myself, and I know we're going to spend most of our time answering questions. As I said in my announcement, not only proud of the city, I put roots down here. I'm a proud San Diego State Aztec. I hope our team's doing well versus Ohio State right about now. Wish us luck, because we're gonna need it. Put my roots down. Wife Catherine, my son Jack and Lauren live in Point Loma public schools. Believe very, very much in the city's bright future. Was a volunteer on the city's Park and Recreation Board of Directors, chairman of the Mission Bay Park Committee for a number of years. That's where I came to meet George Mitrovich when we were talking about changing the city's government, moving away from the bureaucracy into the system that we have now, with a strong mayor and a strong council form of government, as we sat many mornings and afternoons, George, as we came together and helped make those decisions. That's the way forward, as we do it together. And I'm convinced that the city of San Diego is ready for that spirit of cooperation. We're ready to end the dysfunction. We're ready to end the divisiveness. We're ready to end the name-calling. We need to treat people with dignity and respect. And when you come to City Hall, check your egos at the door. I think that's what people are looking for in the next mayor of the city of San Diego. Somebody that not only has the experience and the demonstrated track record to move us forward, but has the ability and the understanding to know that to be successful, we do it when we work together. That's what I'm going to bring to the mayor's job. That's what I'd like to think that I've brought as a city council member. And that's what has allowed us to not only be effective, but to have the mutual trust that we need when times are tough. that we can put San Diegans forward. So I'm very glad and was very humbled to be here today, George, but I will leave you with this, that I'm so optimistic about our city's future. I'm very optimistic that we're getting back on track. We're started that immediately. Todd is doing a remarkable job already hitting the ground running. I'm going to let him talk about some of those things, and we'll talk about some more specifics coming up. But our best days, ladies and gentlemen, are right ahead of us. We have great projects that we're going to move forward on. And I will just say we are going to move forward on our convention center expansion that is coming up. Big hearing on that in October, critically important to us. We are going to have a wonderful opportunity to renew our civic pride with the beautiful opening of our new downtown library. Dr. Jacobs, sir, thank you very much for your continued passion for that project. San Diego is back. We are back quickly. We are going to show that not only to all of our neighbors here in town, but we're going to show it to everybody across the country, who we are and what we're made of. So thank you for allowing me to come say a few words today. I'm looking forward to answering any of your questions. I believe deeply in our city. We are going to do it together, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Mr. Faulconer was indeed there in the long process about strong mayor, a passion that many of us had and is now finally a reality. There's a little footnote. Jerry Sanders actually opposed strong mayor, right? He contributed $2,000 to defeat it. And then when he was elected mayor and became the first strong mayor, he thought it was the greatest form of government he had ever experienced. It's just strange how those things turn out. Mr. Faulconer said that he is a proud Aztec, aren't we all? Except last Saturday night when Mr. Marston and my brother Bill and others went to the game to see the Aztec roll over Eastern Illinois. The final score, 40-19, Eastern Illinois.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it.
So I mentioned that for a reason, because in the history of college football, the greatest upset, this will date me, I wasn't there, but I read, the greatest upset was when Center College beat mighty Harvard. So if Center College can beat mighty Harvard, when Harvard was mighty, San Diego State can beat Ohio State today. And then we'll all rejoice when Oregon State comes in next Saturday night and we can beat Oregon State. Aztecs can beat Beavers. That's just an aside. Our next speaker, Mr. Faulconer referenced him as the interim mayor, but to me, he is the mayor. When you are elected to public office, and you're elected mayor or senator or governor, no matter the nature of our friendship, I will never call you by your first name again. I just don't do that. Jerry Sanders used to ask my wife, why doesn't he call me Jerry? And she said, because he can't. And this young man has a remarkable record of public service. He was our council member and a very great one. And we're so lucky to have him where he now is. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor of the city of San Diego, the Honorable Todd Gloria.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And thank you, Kevin, for those warm comments. Kevin and I have always had a friendship on the city council since before I even was elected. And he's been a great partner in helping to move the city forward. When I was elected, we came in for our first meeting. I think we had to cut about $179 million out of the city's budget. Here's a pro tip. You don't run for office about what you're going to cut from the city's budget, and so it was difficult. But working in partnership with every member of the city council, we made the tough decisions to put the city back on the right track. And we've sort of lost our way in recent months, but I think together we're going to be able to put the city back on track. And that's a bit about what I want to talk about today. Obviously, this has been a difficult summer for San Diego. And I would ask everyone to remember that things weren't going all that well even before the allegations of sexual misconduct and harassment. We had fights unnecessary fights about our appointments to our Port Commission. And we have one of our Port Commissioners here, Rafael Castellanos. It's one of the best things I did as Council President was get this gentleman on the Port Commission because he's working hard on our behalf. That was over the objections of our mayor, and it made no sense whatsoever. A man who ran on a platform of adding diversity to our city's boards and commissions, Rafael was an eminently qualified candidate that the mayor chose to veto, but Kevin and I working together were able to get us at the table. And I thought that that was important because for those of you who watch the port's issues closely, you know they're grappling with their own budget challenges. San Diego is in the fortunate position of having 3 of the 7 commissioner seats on that board. And when you knew that 2 of our seats were vacant, I think you can do the simple math to figure out how they were going to balance that budget, and it wasn't going to be to San Diego's benefit. And so we worked hard to get Rafael and his colleague Marshall Merrifield, along with Bob Nelson, to have a full complement of commissioners there to make sure that big projects like the Convention Center, like the North Embarcadero Visionary Plan, and other things that we're relying on our port to get done, get done. Additionally, we had our fight over our SANDAG appointments. That one was a bit curious because there's really only 9 people in the world who could serve on the SANDAG board and committees, the council members. This should not be difficult, but it was. It was a protracted battle for no good reason. Obviously, the tourism marketing district was a battle that was unnecessary and I think is presently harming our city's finances because of our reduced receipt of tourism revenues. And those are the dollars that Kevin and I use to pay for your firefighters, your police officers, to pave your roads and keep your libraries open. We have unfinished business where that's concerned. The list goes on. And so while we were right to focus on the very disappointing behavior of our former mayor, the reality was not all was right before that. And so there's a lot to clean up. I assumed the duties of the mayor a week ago. It's a big job. There's a bit of a mess that needs to be cleaned up, and I want to maybe take you through some of what I think we need to do. First, of course, and some of you have heard me refer to the need for a top-down review of all city departments. I know that sounds a little bit vague. Let me tell you what I mean by that. It's very clear that Bob Faulconer was a micromanager, got his fingers into everything, far beyond what any chief executive officer should do. We know that on at least 2 development projects, there was direction given to staff that seemed curious, if not illegal, that the council subsequently had to clean up. There may be more of those instances. What I'm asking is for every department director to come forward and tell me what's on your books, what needs to be undone or repaired. If you do that, we'll clean it up. No apologies necessary. Let's just fix the mess. And so that process started on day 1 when I sat down with our interim chief operating officer, Walt Eckert, and asked for that work to begin. I'm meeting with all the department directors early next week to start that work in earnest, and I think that we can clean up those items fairly quickly. Secondly, is restructuring of the mayor's staff. In just 1 week that's there, I kept 23 of the 27 staff members in the mayor's office. I did that because I'm not trying to create chaos, I'm trying to create calm at City Hall. And what I've learned in the week of working with these individuals is that many of them are really well qualified public servants who wanted to do good work, but who were not empowered to do so. And you couple that with the lack of information. We had a man that ran for office saying he'd create the most open government, most transparent government in the city's history, but he went about doing exactly the opposite, not responding to public records requests, not providing basic information. On 4th of July, not even allowing the lifeguards to tell the media how many people were on our beaches or what the water conditions were. This is insanity. What I've started doing is empowering our public servants, the people that you pay for through your taxes, to do their jobs. If we have people whose job titles are public information officers, guess what? They should be talking to the public and providing them with information. They are doing that now. For the staff in the mayor's office, we're interviewing each of them one by one to figure out where their skill sets fit for my vision for the city for the next 5 to 6 months that I'll be in this role. And we're going to use those talents. And there are some really awesome people that are there who wanted to do good work, but they just couldn't. They're doing that now. And so in the months to come, I think you're going to see a number of great initiatives come out of my office. The last thing, and I already sort of alluded to this, is about transparency with the public. I think that the behavior of our former mayor really has caused everyone in the city to sort of question what's going on at City Hall. And what I want to be clear is that this was about one man, not about one organization. Now, he did a lot of damage. There's no question about it. And I'm happy to go into some detail about what I've discovered in terms of what needs to be fixed. But the fact of the matter is what the most important job that I can do right now is to rebuild the trust with the community. And so you're going to see me out and about, and that's why I appreciate the opportunity to be here to hear directly from me. What's going on? What needs to be repaired? How are we going to move forward? Additionally, empowering the public information officers to give the public the information that they're owed under the law, I think will help. I think in explaining in weekly media briefings what we're doing, what's on deck, what's coming forward, what problems there are, and what's my plan to solve it, that will help rebuild trust with the people. If we can do all of that, we will have cleaned up the mess at City Hall. Don't worry, Kevin, I'll get it all done in time. And we'll be able to move forward with the big things that need to be done at our city. And that's maybe where I want to end with two more quick things. One is that I've been asked in recent weeks, or I guess last 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, it's a bit of a whirlwind, are you going to be a caretaker? I want to be very clear. I'm not going to do that. We're going to move aggressively forward. We have to make up for lost time. We lost 9 months to chaos, to dysfunction, to scandals. Not a lot got done. The council got a lot done. I think it was in spite of the executive branch, and we can talk about strong mayor if you want, George. I didn't support it either. But I may have different opinions on that now. Just kidding. We were sliding backwards as a city. But now is not the time to go into neutral. It's the time to move forward. So what are we going to do? Kevin kind of alluded to a few things that we're going to do in the next few months. September 28th, what's going on September 28th? We're opening our central library, and I hope that you've put that on your calendars. This is a citywide event, a 30-year dream that is coming true because this community has come together to make it so. And I also want to thank Dr. Jacobs and his wife, Joan, for being a very key philanthropic help in making that happen. But citizens across the city, in dollars large and small, have helped create this opportunity, something that was envisioned so long ago, but now will be a reality. And I think that's going to be a great day for our city at the precise moment when we need it, to show that we can do big things together, that we can take our dreams and make them a reality. This is not just going to be a ribbon cutting. It's not just going to be a boring speech by me. It's going to be a street fair, and we're expecting maybe 10,000 people to come down. So I hope that you will come and join in that joyous celebration for our city. October 9th through the 11th, the California State Coastal Commission will be in San Diego. I will be there. Raphael, I'm sure, will be there, and others will be there to articulate why we must expand our convention center. Some of you know that we turn away 1 year's worth of business today because our convention center isn't large enough to accommodate all the folks who want to come to San Diego. And can you blame them? I mean, we're an amazing city. Of course they want to be here. And when they come here, 10.5 cents of every dollar they spend in their hotel rooms comes to me to pay for your road repair and your cops and your firefighters. So we're going to advocate for that project. That's not to say that we don't have unfinished business when it comes to our charters. We do. I'm not a sports guy. I'm not going to profess to be interested in professional football. But what I will say is that the hallmark of a great city is that you have professional sports. And we are a great city, and we will have professional sports, but these are not mutually exclusive. We can do both. We're a big city. We can do both. We will do that. October 9th through the 11th, articulating for our convention center. And then in December, I expect to bring forward for the City Council's consideration a $100 million bond for investing in our neighborhoods, to repair our roads, to fix sidewalks, to build fire stations and libraries. This is a part of the Council's ongoing efforts to rebuild our neighborhoods. We cannot wait on that kind of work until we have a new mayor. We have to keep it going. We're not going backward. We're not sitting in neutral. We're moving aggressively forward, and we're making up for lost time. Lastly, I just want to say, because we have so many young people who are here, some from the Preuss School, many of whom are probably from my old home neighborhood of City Heights, for those who are doubting our city, and I understand why some, particularly in the national media, may have doubt our city. What is our motto as a city? We're America's finest city. You might have doubted that in recent weeks. I'm here to tell you that we are America's finest city. We will always be America's finest city. And I offer up my own story to tell you why that's true. Some of you know I'm a third-generation San Diegan. I'm the son of a hotel maid and a gardener. Who better to clean up City Hall than a son of a maid? I'm a Native American, Filipino, Puerto Rican, Dutch gay guy from City Heights. I have suddenly found myself in a position where I'm not only elected to represent the best council district in the city, where I was elected by my colleagues to be the council president, and now I'm in the fortunate position of serving as mayor. My story is, I think, a wonderful representation of what this community can do. Anything can happen in San Diego if you work hard and play by the rules. And if you all are with me in spending the next number of months working hard, repairing the damage. We will move this city forward. We will remind the nation why we are called America's finest city. And like Kevin said, our greatest days are still ahead. So I want to encourage the young people who are here. I'm glad you're here because I was like you in those seats once. And I didn't know what I could become, but I'm here to tell you, you can be anything. And I'd hope that you'll join us in the effort of building America's finest city because we need you. Guys, thanks very much for your time this afternoon. I look forward to answering any questions you have.
Well, that was terrific. We'll have some dialogue. So if you have questions, try to keep them brief because they'll need to be repeated. And if you'd be kind enough to indicate to which either the mayor or the councilman you would like the question addressed to. Who would like to be first? Yes, sir.
I'd actually like to direct the question to both.
Yes, sir.
Different views. Can you describe your assessment of the pension situation in the city, just briefly, and then to the extent improvements need to be made in terms of making that financially stable, what those would be?
The question concerns an assessment of the pension situation, which both of these gentlemen can well address.
Sure. No, thank you. A great question. And obviously, as somebody who worked very hard for pension reform, Proposition B, which we put on the ballot and voters overwhelmingly approved, that was extremely important for our city, not just for the short term, but for the long term. As Todd and I know, we had a pension system, excuse me, that was just unsustainable. We had previous city councils that had granted increased benefits with no way to pay for them. We had to change that dynamic, and we did. The voters did. Part of what we talked about a little bit earlier on the 5-year agreement that we came together was ensuring that we had stability for our city employees, but also that we remained true and faithful to the terms of Proposition B on the pension reform. So we did not have any increases that were pensionable pay. The council came together on that. That was the right choice. I was glad to see that it passed and it passed overwhelmingly. So we still have work to do to ensure as we move forward that we adhere to the terms of that. But that pension reform was critically important, not just from a financial basis, but also voters' trust that the money at City Hall is being spent and being spent wisely. We have great employees that work for the city of San Diego. They deserve a fair and equitable retirement system, and they deserve one that the city and the taxpayers can afford. That was our guiding principle, the voters' guiding principle when they passed it. We now have other cities across the state and across the country. They're looking at what San Diego did, who unfortunately had some of the same problems that we did in the city financially from pensions. So that was very important for us, and it's something that as we move forward, particularly with future salary negotiations, we're all going to have to keep in mind.
I appreciate the question, mostly because it gives me a chance to provide some information. We've gone through 10 years of financial crisis at City Hall, and obviously a lot has been written about pensions and excesses and things of that nature. Not a lot has been written or explained to the public about how far we've come, where we went from being Enron by the sea to a situation where a few months ago I was doing interviews with Governing Magazine, which is like the Bible for weirdos like me, saying that we are on the cutting edge of fiscal reform in the nation. Now, in 2005, our pension system, the Tier 1 was closed, and we created a second tier. And then voters last year approved Proposition B, which created a third tier with no pensions and 401ks only. With retiree health care, as Kevin mentioned, we have arrested a lot of the overall employee compensation growth with the 5-year deal that's been helped as well. But when you talk about things like UAAL, ARCs, GASB, those are the kinds of things that we deal with in terms of trying to explain this problem, and you all go to sleep instantly. So let me give you perhaps a better example of what this looks like. I am a city council member. My predecessor's pension is roughly 3 times what my pension will be. My successor will not get a pension. Does that make sense? It's going to take years to undo the problems that were created in past administrations, but we are in a situation now where the growth has been more or less arrested. What we're doing now is paying down the debt. That debt will be paid off in about 2024 or thereabouts, and then we'll have predictability and reliability going forward. The only thing I want to caution anyone from waving the mission accomplished banner is 2 things. One is that it requires us to maintain our fiscal discipline. We have made our pension bill on time and in full for the last 7 years, I believe it is. We have to continue to do that. We can't do what people have done in the past where we cut corners. The second thing is that it is my judgment that we may have gone too far. And when you look at the police retention issues, potentially firefighter retention issues, when you have other jurisdictions that are offering signing bonuses, full pensions, full health care, and we don't, we may have a retention problem going forward. So to the extent that the pendulum swung way over to being too excessive in benefits, we have to make sure that we haven't gone too far over in the opposite extreme, leaving us at a competitive disadvantage. That should be the nature of the ongoing conversation, and it should always be tempered by fiscal restraint and what can we actually afford.
Just before we go to the next question, I want to acknowledge the presence of the chairman of the San Diego Zoological Society, and a City Club member. Rick Gully is here. Where are you, Rick? Right here. This is Rick Gully. And one of the great organizations in this city is the National Conflict Resolution Center, represented by President Steve Dinkin and also Robin Siegel. Next question. Dr. Clanton.
Todd, I'm sure a lot of people have urged you to run for mayor, so I'm one of those who's curious to know why you decided not to. And then with the other hat, you're a professional. How do you handicap the ever-growing Democratic field?
The question from Professor Clanton at San Diego State is why the mayor decided not to run for mayor. I'll let you answer the question.
That's very kind of you, George. Thank you. Thank you for the question, the first one. I would have enjoyed running for mayor. I like the job. A week on, I can tell you it's a pretty sweet gig. But you need me to govern. You don't need me to campaign right now. The city's lived through a really difficult time. There is a big mess that Bob Faulconer's left behind. The problems are serious and they're substantial, and they need to be cleaned up. And I'm in the position where the duty fell to me. If I hadn't have ended up in performing the duties of the mayor, I probably would have run. But the time that's necessary to run an effective campaign would have meant that I probably wouldn't have been an effective interim mayor. And my city needs me in this role now, and as much as I might have personally enjoyed running and serving permanently, that's just not the right thing for the city at this point in time. With regard to handicapping going forward, I'm going to reserve judgment on that because the field grows by the day, and obviously on the Democratic side. What's the old saying about, I'm not a member of an organized party? I'm still a Democrat, don't worry. We're going to have a lot of choices, and I think that that's good. I think that in the last election, folks felt as though they didn't have two good choices. I think in this election, all of you are going to have multiple really good choices, and I'd ask you to ask all the tough questions and really figure out what their visions are. What we've learned is that one person can do a lot of damage, and so we have to make the right choice this time. I'm just grateful you're going to have a lot of good choices on that ballot.
I would just say, for the record, I'm perfectly happy that Todd decided not to run for mayor.
I always thought the greatest thing about being mayor is you get to ride around in this great big black SUV with red and blue lights, and you can stop traffic. I mean, who wouldn't want that job? Next question. Yes.
Yes. Well, what's your vision for high-tech San Diego? It's been a divided town ever since I grew up in La Jolla and the university came. What's your vision for 5 years out, 10 years out, to make it, continue to make it?
Thank you, sir.
High-tech.
The question is the vision for high tech.
I'm going to outsource that answer to Erwin Jacobs, if I yeah, the new watch. He's got it. Yeah, he's got it on his wrist. Listen, I'm a local government guy. I didn't do well in science and technology or whatever, but here's the role that I can play in helping that, is creating the circumstances for businesses to want to come to San Diego. Kevin and I have worked a lot on that. The council as a whole has worked a lot on doing what we can through regulatory relief to bring folks here. And what I know is this, if anything I learned in the first 5 years or so that I've been in the job, is that we are in competition, not with just LA. I know it's common for San Diegans to have a rivalry with just our folks up Highway 5. We're competing against every other city in the world. And that's true for the kind of talent that Dr. Jacobs is hiring over at Qualcomm or at any of the other high-tech, biotech, all the innovation economy folks who are here. And so we have to create a city that wants to attract the talent, the knowledge-based economy workers, people who can work and live anywhere in the world, we want them to choose to live here. Now, our environment, our natural resources, our quality of life are great attractors. But as a city official, what I can do is make it attractive for these businesses to come to San Diego. And so whether that's, and this is not a high-tech, well, some might argue it's high-tech. We passed a number of regulations to attract more craft brewers here. That actually is manufacturing. And some might say it's high tech, but there were real barriers in our regulations to having those folks come, and some of them were looking at moving away from San Diego. Those are pretty good jobs. So the council acted to remove those regulations, not to make them unregulated, but to lower the barriers so that they'll stay. That's the kind of stuff that we can also do for high tech. And the other thing I want to mention is the best place that we can invest is in our infrastructure, because these businesses, particularly the high tech businesses, won't come if we have busted streets with lack of quality assured water access or inventory, with a bad power grid. And so that's why you've seen myself and other members of the council aggressively articulate on the issue of investing in our infrastructure. You can't locate a business here if you can't get to it, if you can't supply the energy and the water and those kinds of things. So that's the role that I can play. I'm going to leave the innovation and all the new gadgets to Dr. Jacobs and his peers. But what we want to do is play a supporting role so that we're competitive in the global economy.
We do build on our strengths because we have incredible resources of human capital in this region. We have some of the smartest, the best, the brightest. We call it the new economy, tech economy, the innovation economy. We have it. We have it here in San Diego. And the great news is we're still growing. We talk about fostering that, and something that Todd and I feel strongly about. We both committed some of our dollars with Evo Nexus, which is an incubator downtown for high tech, just to say we want to foster, we want to encourage that. And we now have startup companies similar to ComNexus that started just right around the block here. We are growing that. Our job is to help incentivize that as a city. That is something that I feel very, very strongly about. And we talk about tools that we have in the toolbox. We have to take advantage of our God-given talent that we have from individuals, but we also have to incentivize that for the city. Part of it is getting rid of unnecessary regulations that hinder new business growth and development. And we want to talk about certainty of process. One of the biggest travesties of the Faulconer administration, and Todd alluded to this, is that there was no certainty of process. People didn't know if you started a project, what you'd have to go through. And oftentimes, some of those got stopped for no reason. That will change. That's changed already now, and it will change certainly if I'm fortunate enough to be mayor. But we are going to bring those incentives. We're going to take advantage of what we have and encourage our natural organic growth here in the city. And the great news is that we have key partners, and I mentioned just a couple of them with Evo Nexus, ComNexus, but particularly our Chamber of Commerce, who is focusing on this in technology. Mark Cafferty, I was with just the other day with the San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation. We have an advantage. We're going to grow this by working together. And I think you're going to see some exciting things coming out of City Hall here in the next year.
Mark Dillon, and then the gentleman, yes, Mr. Dillon.
Yeah, it goes to both of you. What can we do to take advantage of the economic and cultural proximity to Tijuana and Mexico instead of treating it like a threat and a menace?
Yeah,
A question from the chairman is, what do we do to take advantage of this rich, great resource called Mexico, which abuts our border?
Yeah, and I think Todd and I both had the opportunity to travel down to Tijuana just recently. I was there a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, with representatives of EDC, and we were down there for an aerospace conference at the brand new convention center that they have just north of Rosarito. And it is a fantastic facility. It was many suppliers on the Baja side, many companies from this side of the border. And you know what struck me the most about it was the spirit of optimism that they have in Tijuana and the willingness in wanting to work more. And it is a two-sided street. Your question hits the nail right on the head. It's a tremendous opportunity for both sides of the border. We don't view it as both sides. We view it as one region, one mega region, if you will, from Los Angeles all the way down to northern Baja. Those are our strengths, and when we start viewing it that way, then we realize we have tremendous opportunities and potential for both sides of the border, not just manufacturing, but that innovation. The vast numbers of engineers that are being turned out just even south of the border as well. I mean, there's an incredible talent pool that we can work together on both sides. a couple of things that we have that we know we need to work on, and we're already working on this, and I believe we'll be talking about it in Washington, D.C. in a couple of weeks. Border times and border waits are one of the biggest barriers that we have now. Moving forward on fully funding phase one, but we cannot stop with phase one, just at the border crossing. It has to be an easy flow of not just commerce, but people. And so that's one of the key things that we're going to be working on. But I will tell you, and I had the opportunity to speak with Carlos Bustamante, mayor of Tijuana, the spirit of wanting to do more with San Diego, wanting to invest more, we've just scratched the potential. And that is something that the council and the mayor, I think you're going to see us take off to greater heights that you've never seen.
I appreciate that question, Mark, because interestingly, I've gotten that almost more than any other question since in the last week or so. A broken clock is right twice a day, right? And this was one area where Bob Faulconer was correct. We have to prioritize our binational relationship. But I would argue that Jerry Sanders did a wonderful job of creating an actual real friendship with Carlos Bustamante, the current mayor of Tijuana. One of my first things I did was call Mayor Bustamante after I assumed the duties to assure him that the relationship is still a priority for San Diego. I'm going down, I believe, Tijuana next week to meet with him personally to reiterate my support. We're going to keep the City of San Diego office in Tijuana open, and we're going to continue to work together. And this maybe underlines one of those areas where the former mayor's vision was correct, but his execution was terrible, was around, as Kevin was mentioning, around our port of entry. The border wait times is a massive drain and drag on our economy. What we've seen is on the Mexican side, they've actually completed their side of the port of entry, and the United States has not. This, I would say, was not helped by Bob Faulconer's decision to fire the city's lobbyists in Washington, D.C. and leave us without representation for the last 9 months. There was no one banging on the door of the GSA to say, where is our money to finish this project? That's going to change as soon as I can make it happen, and we're going to rehire representation, be back there, and to articulate that point. Additionally, it's my hope that during the interim period, I can execute an MOU with the General Services Administration to take over the responsibilities of a pedestrian access at Virginia Way to at least improve that wait time. And then lastly, going forward, you see wonderful, innovative ideas happening. Just this week, I think it was in yesterday's paper, the creation of the cross-border terminal to take advantage of Rodriguez Field's air capacity for San Diegans. Many already do this. This will help facilitate it. But as Kevin says, it's 2 cities, 1 region. I'm going to do my very best over the next number of months to keep hammering home that point. And there's a lot of work to do. Again, the vision was right. The execution was poor. I'm aiming to do the vision and the execution right.
Some of you may not know that when Alan Burson was the Commissioner of U.S. Customs Border Protection, now at Homeland Security, I worked with him. We, with the mayor of El Paso and with Jerry Sanders, created the United States-Mexico Border Association of Mayors from San Diego to Brownsville. It's an ongoing organization, and these partnerships are absolutely critical. Next, yes, sir.
My name is Michael McConnell. I don't think we can talk about moving San Diego forward without addressing the issue of homelessness, especially chronic homelessness. Currently, we have no overarching leadership on this issue in the city, and our system gets very poor outcomes. And I want to, including under the previous mayor, I want to just ask both the mayor and the candidate for mayor what you would do to improve our system of services and provide the leadership that we need on this issue to move from blaming people who are homeless to actually improving our system of services.
The question is about homelessness. It's a very great issue. Gentlemen?
Yeah, I can tell you unequivocally, you have 2 gentlemen up here who strongly believe in the cities and our obligation to help and do everything we can for homelessness, who have put their actions behind their words. One of the biggest things that we did as a city council, and it was in downtown, it was my council district for a number of years, Todd took over several years ago when the lines changed, was our Connections Housing Center, which is we built a large state-of-the-art facility for homeless individuals, including not just beds, but wraparound services, mental health services, nutrition services, legal services, others. That was a huge fight. That was a huge fight, and I remember it vividly because individuals did not want that facility. They said, we don't want that in downtown. I stood up for it, and I said, we have to have this in downtown San Diego. Homelessness is not just a downtown problem. It affects us all throughout the city. But if we prove that we could do it right, and do it right in downtown, and Todd has heard me say this over and over again, then we can replicate that model in other parts of the city. It's up and running. Family Health Centers is involved. They're doing a wonderful job, but it requires constant, it requires political will, is what it does. And political will was in short supply when it came at the beginning of that conversation in that center, but we did do it, and our commitment to the citizens of San Diego was this was not going to be the first one. It's tough. It's expensive. Unfortunately, many of the homeless population are duly diagnosed, meaning they have substance abuse problems and they have mental health problems. Incredibly difficult. But how we do it is we treat it with care, we treat it with compassion, and we work with our residents, we work with our business owners, but the city does have an obligation, and we have to lead forward and lead by example. I think we did a remarkable thing when we opened Connections Housing. Now the challenge for us as a city is to open others in other parts of the city and neighborhood. So people do not fear this, but they welcome this, is that we're helping people get back on track, get back on their lives, placing them into jobs. It's not just, and we say this over and over again in downtown, it's not just about providing somebody a bed for the night. It's providing them the opportunity to get healthy, to get well, and to get back on their feet. That's the commitment that Todd and I and my colleagues have, and I think this city has shown a lot of leadership in that, but we're not done.
As a politician, you should never disagree with the questioner, but I'm going to disagree with you because I feel as though we have brought a whole new level of leadership to this issue. But it's one of the most difficult issues there are, and solving it, unfortunately, just often means that you're creating pathways out. You're not actually curing the root cause, which is often lack of education, addiction, mental illness. What we have to do is create the circumstances that when someone finds himself in that position, that they have a way out. And we're in the nascent efforts of creating those opportunities. But I'll tell you that this is one of the reasons I ran for office. I served on the Housing Commission for many years before I was elected to the City Council, and I ran for office because I'm very concerned about the affordable housing crisis in this city, and we have to do more on this issue. And while it affects working families, you can imagine that the poorest of the poor are the ones who are harmed the most by the high cost of housing. So I think that we have been providing leadership. You're right to say, well, where are the results? Kevin mentioned Connections Housing, a $37 million investment by this city in a year-round effort. Prior to Connections, the nature of our commitment to the homeless was about 16 weeks in the wintertime. Well, it gets cold in February, March, April. There are services, people need help in the summertime months as well, right? So with Connections, you have a step in that direction. The opening of the check-in center to allow folks to store their belongings when they may not have a home, but they do have stuff. And when you take all that stuff to a job interview, that doesn't make it so likely that you're going to get hired, right? So testing that concept, working with our business community to do the Work Your Way Home program with the Downtown Partnership. There are a lot of very small efforts that hopefully can be replicated. The state has done us no favors by taking away the redevelopment dollars that we needed to create the affordable housing beds. And if you have the opportunity, please call your state assembly member, your state senator, and tell them, give us some means of creating these beds. We have a plan, even in the absence of redevelopment, to create 1,000 new units of affordable housing in our city. About 400 of them will be dedicated to formerly homeless individuals. So we're making a commitment. Additionally, we've directed the Housing Commission, and they have agreed to start dedicating Section 8 housing choice vouchers to the homeless. And so you're attaching those to individuals to give them the pathway out. We have an enormous problem in the city, ladies and gentlemen. We have 10,000 people who are identified as homeless. That, under any other circumstance, would be a natural disaster, right? You'd have FEMA coming in to address 10,000 people who don't have homes. This is not a situation as a result of a storm or an earthquake. This is the daily situation in our county. We can do better than this, but what we have to do is start making the dedication of the resources, whether it's the $37 million for the Connections Housing, the housing choice vouchers, the 1,000 units that we have coming in the pipeline. We're making a commitment, but of course the problem is huge and we have to do more. Two other points I just want to make. There are about 1,000 homeless in downtown. There are about 1,000 homeless along the San Diego River. There's about 1,000 of them in the beach and bay communities. This is not unique to downtown. The focus is often there, but chances are you have a very substantial homeless encampment near your home, and so you have to be a part of the solution as well. When there's public will around these things, you tend to get the dollars to flow. The last thing I want to mention is I want us to feel good about this issue as a city. As much work as we have left to do, we have had conversations about big civic projects in the city, right? The things that we want to build. We want to build a stadium, a convention center expansion, so on and so forth. What was the first civic project that we got done? the year-round homeless shelter. The second is our central library. And given that we have had question about whether or not we are, what we are as a city in recent months, know that when we had our dollars to invest, we chose to invest them amongst the poorest in our community first. Then we made a $187 million investment in knowledge and technology and education and arts and culture, and we'll figure out the sports team stuff later. We have our priorities straight as a city, and I think that that's something we should all be proud of.
Last question to Mr. Van Diver.
For both of the council member and the mayor, we have the largest concentration of veterans in the country here in San Diego. Is there, I know prior to Mayor Filner's election, there was no veterans department in the city. Is there a vision from the council or from the mayor's office on how we can best serve our veterans communities, whether it's jobs or, so I know you met with Ty Carter last week about, and his big thing is PTS, one Medal of Honor. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on.
The question has to do with the veterans. We have the largest delegation of veterans. We'll let the two gentlemen answer.
Sure, I appreciate the question. We have about 250,000 in our county, and that's obviously a substantial part of our community. How I mentioned before, Native American, Puerto Rican, Filipino, and Dutch, the Navy. That's how that happens. So I get it. And we have to do more. One of the things I did was offer an initiative on the 2010 ballot, Proposition C, which actually updated the city's veterans hiring policy. It was previous to Prop C, only reserved for people who were drafted. And for some of the folks who are younger, you might not know what that is. But basically, we hadn't had a veterans preference in hiring since like the 70s. And so we changed that. The voters voted 75% to do that change. Obviously, Bob Filner had brought some attention to this issue. I think, like so many other things, his execution was terrible. Greatest example I can give you, and this goes back to the last question, is the Veterans Homeless Tent. You know, he made a commitment saying this would be open year-round. That is not true. It is slated for closure in April because he didn't fund it the way he said he would. And so rather than just simply adopting whole hog the Filner approach, we're going to look at it more critically. I think that we do have an obligation to our veterans, but whether it's the veterans hiring policy, the work we're doing around homeless veterans, I think we've already done some work. Whether or not we're putting that into a comprehensive package that we can explain clearly to the veterans that we want you here. And of course we do, right? These are people who are heroes. They're folks who've already served this country, and of course we want them to stay here when they get discharged. We just have to create the pathways out for that. I argue that we've done some of that work. We can do better than what was being done the last number of months. I hope to do some of that, and obviously the next mayor will have that opportunity. Kevin?
And I want to thank Todd because he mentioned and he really was a leader on this issue, particularly on the hiring for the city. And he and I also share the view that the nonprofit sector, the private sector, has to be a big partner in this. And so when we look at some of the fantastic programs that have started recently, particularly Rear Admiral Ronnie Froman and her Reboot program, which is taking men and women that are recently out of the service, giving them the reboot, some of the training and the skills to now enter the private sector. That's our opportunity. We as a city should be supporting that. Every program doesn't have to be part of the city of San Diego because we have remarkable programs that are existing outside the city. But they need to know that they will have a mayor and a council that supports that, and supports that not just in words, but in support, whether that be financially, whether that be in terms of any legislation that we need to do. Todd talked about the veterans hiring preference. But I see our role also to make sure that we are giving support to those groups and organizations that are in the trenches, are doing it every single day with these men and women who have put their lives on the line, supported and love our country. We are one of the largest concentrations in the United States of America here in San Diego. We love our military, we love our veterans, and we're going to support those groups and organizations who are on the cutting edge, particularly of some of those training programs. We've committed to that now. You're going to see, as long as Todd and I are there, that continued commitment, and more so, execution.
A closing comment, but first, Ellie has a presentation. Come, dear.
On behalf of the students from Country Day, we'd like to give you, so you can always.
Thank you. We're not going to put them on now. Thank you.
If you came to the meeting today wondering about where we are and where we're going, you can't leave here without having a very good feeling. Both of these gentlemen are so incredibly impressive, and we're grateful for their time. They have a much greater constituency than those gathered in this room. Heracles, in his famous oration to the Athenians, said that we do not imitate, but are a model to others. I think with the mayor and with the councilman and others, we can claim that as our own. But now I think it's completely appropriate to stand and express to these two great public servants our appreciation.